Hello everyone, welcome or welcome back. My name is Phaedra and we grow flowers and food in Australia. Today I'm giving you a tour of our farm and I'll talk you through all the plants and all the plans. So let's get into it. We're walking out to the flower field, which was the flower field. It's now flowers and vegetables. Before we get started, I'll just go through a couple of small things. I've still got my 2025 calendars up in my shop. The link is in the description. There's a listing if you want it shipped from Australia or from the US, so you just need to choose whichever one works best for you. And there's also some t-shirts in there. So there's the husband pie t-shirts and the bee t-shirts. I've got my Buy Me a Coffee up, and thank you so much everyone for your support. I'm actually going to talk about the fencing today. I'm using the funds from there for fencing. And I've also got my Patreon, and it's quite cheap to join. You'll see some I talk about behind the scenes stuff, like things I wouldn't otherwise want the whole world knowing on YouTube. One more quick thing that I forgot to mention. Next Saturday, I'm doing a sit down sort of talking head video, answering questions and just discussing a few major topics. So if you've got something you would like to hear my thoughts on or hear me talk about, or you've got a question, please put it in the comments and I will hopefully get to it for the next video. We have our field and it's beautiful o'clock right now. It's about 7 a.m. and very ironically, it is 20 degrees, which is beautiful, and it's a little bit windy. I hope my mic isn't picking that up too badly. But yesterday was so hot. It was 38 degrees yesterday and it was just so hot. The flowers and veggies have coped fine. We watered 3 times. We watered morning, mid, afternoon, and then later last night, just to pull everything through. It has been a hot summer. So normally normally the warmth would hit us a bit sooner in the season, so the spring would start and warm up a bit sooner than what it did, and then it would gradually warm up, normally after Christmas. Not this time. It sort of stayed cold. We had a late frost and then bang, we just had heat. So it has been a shock, and it's also affected the plants a little bit. I didn't get things in as early as normal, so everything's behind. For 2 reasons. I've been going through burnout. If you're new here, I've been going through burnout and I just couldn't get it done. And I knew that once I got everything in, I had to water every single day. And the second reason is the weather. It was so hard to find a window to get things in. So of course, some plants haven't coped very well with them being tiny seedlings and the heat hitting them. So what we'll do is we'll start with plot 1. This is the plot closest to the house, and I actually have some big plans for this area. I'm just holding my hand over the mic to try to stop the wind blowing onto it. I will put the drone up now and I'll talk you through this. Our entire field is rows. They're 12 meters long by 1.2 meters wide, but by the time I cut the edging in, it's about 1 meter. And then our pathways are 80 centimeters, but they end up about 1 meter. So it's roughly 1 meter wide rows by 1 meter wide pathways. And that's been the whole farm. And it's been amazing. It's really easy for row cover to pop row cover on. Everything's uniform, everything's the same size. It doesn't matter what we're doing, if we're putting row cover or plastic or anything else that we're doing, everything fits everywhere and it's great. However, since there's been some big changes, I will link some videos if you're not caught up on that. Some big changes where the flower industry has kind of suffered from the economy a lot. It's pushed us out the door as retail florists, and also in terms of our own happiness, we just don't want to farm flowers intensively anymore. So we are doing flowers and vegetables. It's a much happier place, but it also means I don't necessarily need these rows anymore. So what I'm doing with plot 1, and I'll pop the drone up. Has anybody seen The Hobbit? And they're cute little gardens. Like, it's just these like meandering little blobs that they plant in, and it's so cute. So that's the inspiration. I'm going to turn plot, I think I'm going to turn it into 3, this is just to give you a rough idea, 3 sort of blobs to plant into, and it'll mainly have perennials. Well, it'll have a heap of perennials. I might pop a few dwarf fruit trees, and then come spring I can plant in my annuals and the flowers and the vegetables, and I can put some trellises and things. So it'll just be like this cute little space. You'll walk through my main entry of the garden, which is on the corner, and you'll just meander up through. And up the back here where this big junk pile is, I actually need a tractor, and I want to cover this all in soil and turn it into a little hill. You know, the Hobbit hill. It'd be so cool if I could put like a little Hobbit house up there, but it's going to end up too tall, so I don't want to do that. Anyway, so that's the plan for plot 1, and I think it is going to be so cute. I can't wait. I'll talk you through what we've got in plot 1 today, like what all the plants are. But over the season, this is going to change. I'm going to start building these blobs. So it is going to look a lot messier before it gets better. So we've got row 1, we've got Yackandandah, a dahlia, just here. And then I've just got random perennials scattered in there. And that's just in preparation for the future. I've got a couple of artichokes, I've got some hollyhocks. I've put some in, I think the rabbits or the kangaroos got those. So that's the other challenge we're having here. I need to get the fencing in. It is happening. And then we've got row 2, which did have some corn in it. It's the Oaxacan corn, so it's the green one. But the wallabies got it. So they've eaten the tops out of some of them, which, as you know, buggers up corn, and they eat the rest. Then I had a section of marigolds, which I just can't get to germinate. I've tried 3 different sowings, so I'm going to have to order new seed because I think there's something wrong with the seed. And then up here, I've got Evening Mist, and it's one of my favorite dahlias. It is the most gorgeous purple. It's so pretty. They're all going really well. They've been pinched. It's just slow. And now the heat has hit. They are struggling a little. Achillea, just this patch is just sort of always there now. We grew it 1 year or 2 years or something. And it just does its own thing. And then we've got row 3, and this was just a volunteer. It's actually looking like it's going to be Atlantic Jewels, I think it's going to be. And it was left in the ground, so you can see the difference of these dahlias that didn't get lifted. They're just growing beautifully, and here's the little tiny ones that I've planted out, and we're still waiting. Next we've got some sunflowers, and these are the Double Dazzler. If you haven't seen the Double Dazzler sunflowers, they're gorgeous. They're similar to the teddy bears, but they're not branching. I found the teddy bears very difficult to work with. The Double Dazzlers are a much better stem configuration to work with in floristry, and I find them much easier to grow in our climate, and I still find them gorgeous, fluffy, full heads. Highly recommend them. However, I only got 5 because the wallabies and the rabbits came and ate them again. So I'm really struggling with that. And then the rest of this row, we've got some more dahlias, and these are Pink Show, which is another one that I love. Really pretty colours. So I'll have the purples over here, and then the pinks here. The colours watermelons, like a pinky colour. So I'm kind of doing pinks and purples. And then I've got some loofah just here. And I did plant some beans in around there as well, because I only got 1 loofah plant growing. Next row we had sunflowers, but again, look, the tops have been eaten out of everything. They've had a really good nibble on that, and they've pretty much done it to everything, which is getting very frustrating. Then I've got some more dahlias. I've got Evening Mist. Something's happened to one here. I'm missing one. And then I've got Samoan Prince, which is a really big dinner plate. And then I've got my next trellis, and it is cucumbers. This one's not looking too good, but otherwise they're growing fine. My Moon and Stars watermelon, which is gorgeous. Quite a small watermelon, but it has the most beautiful sort of aquary teal sort of skin, a deep colour. And then it's got the yellow tiny spots, and then the bigger blotches like the yellow. and it looks like moon and stars, and they're so gorgeous, and I now grow them every year. I just really enjoy them. The taste is not as good as like what we're used to eating commercially. Quite sweet. They're just such a pretty little watermelon to grow. And then the rest of this row, I've just got some herbs, sage, dill, and then we've just got right up the end here some salmon joy and a volunteer that I don't know what it is yet. The next plot across here, there's not a lot in here. I've need to plant some things out. I've got a globe artichoke, which I didn't cover, and I'm pretty sure the animals have eaten. This section here needs to be weeded out, and I'm putting next year's Canterbury bells in here. And then I've got some amaranth. I think this is pygmy torch. I just check. Yep, pygmy torch, and one sunflower, because I'd planted this entire area with sunflowers, and of course the animals got it again, which, you know, they can just jump through, and they do. I've got my avalanche dahlias in here. They are a bit tightly packed. I probably went a bit overboard with how closely I planted those together. And I've got some root veg. We've got beetroot, which I've started picking and eating, carrots, which the animals have eaten the tops out of. It really is getting frustrating. The carrots are fine, but you know, it's not great. And then I've got the next succession of radishes in here. So now you'll see my rows kind of just stop. I'll just go back a bit. But the reason being is this whole section here I want to turn into a pergola area and put a big trellis with grapevines and, you know, big pots with olives and things. I'd like to pave the ground and everything. So this will become a very nice seating area. And as you meander through plot 1, which will become, you know, the blobs or the bubbles, you'll kind of meander through, and then you'll get to this big trellis area, and then you'll have the hill behind, which I think is going to look so good. So I've started cleaning out this area here. I actually used that soil somewhere else. We've got our strawberry row, and then we've got a finished row. This was the Kalawai daisy. It's cute. And then as it's finishing off, it just, well, this isn't a good one, this is old, but it just gets like a little ball head. A little bit similar to Billy Button, but not, if that makes sense. And then my Canterbury bells are up the end here. And I could cut them all back and let them keep flowering, but the weather has just been so hot and they don't like the heat. And I kind of feel like I'm best just to let them die off now, and I'll cut them back and we'll use the row for something else. It's just sometimes not worth all the effort to keep something alive against its natural tendencies to want to die. I also have a what is it called? A zucchini here. And I do have another one over in plot 2, somewhere over here. So we'll move to plot 2 now. I plan to keep plot 2 as is, so I'll keep this as the rows, because then it's much easier to teach things if you are growing for cut flower production. I can continue to show you those, you know, tips and tricks if I keep plot 2 as rows. So let's have a look at what I've got. Plot 2 was our very first section that we ever set up. And the soil's really nice. It's actually really beautiful now. I did spend a lot of time over summer amending everything. There's a couple of rows up the back there that need doing, but otherwise it's really nice. So we'll start with row 1, and we've got more evening mist in along here. So the purple. And then the rest of this row are my reds, which are supposed to be for Valentine's Day, which is in like 6 weeks, 7 weeks, and they are so stunted. So I did get them in late. It was still enough time for them to grow and flower for Valentine's, but we've just had such difficult weather. So up until this week, we've had heaps of heat, and then we'd get really cold nights, and then we'd have, you know, really cold days. It's just been the most inconsistent weather, which is becoming the pattern for here. So it's just something we're probably going to have to get used to as the years move on. And it's not great for dahlias. They like that consistent warmth. So I am struggling a little bit. We will get flowers and they're going to look beautiful. I just wish it was now. Like it's the end of December, so we're about to hit, January is the middle of summer for us, and I'm still waiting for my plants and flowers, and I'm trying not to get annoyed about it because it is what it is, and the other thing is with my health, I just couldn't get it in any earlier. Oh, but I really wish I did. Plot 2 still has some Larkspur in it, and I'm ripping it all out because this whole garden is going to be edible. All the flowers, all the food, eventually all the trees and the vines, absolutely everything out here will be edible. And Larkspur is not edible. Don't eat it. So I just need to come through and rip this out, especially before it keeps going to seed, which it's doing. Here's more of my avalanche here. Just a little small patch, and then up the end of row 2 for plot 2, I've got another zucchini, and this one's doing really well. It's actually got some zucchinis on it. It's looking really nice. I just need to come out here and weed. Then row 3, it's kind of a bit haphazard. I have some volunteer feverfew, which of course I've just left it to come up because it's beautiful and I love it, and it never hurts to have random flowers. Then I've got some corn, which is the blue popcorn, and some of it's doing okay, some isn't. The animals bit off most of the heads. I can see here we've got 1, 2, 3, we've got 4 left, which is not good. And then some yellow squash. I think, just going back to the corn, I think things like corn and carrots, I either need to net them, which I can't with corn, it's going to grow too tall, or not grow it until I've got the fencing in. And it's been really difficult for me to get these big projects done because I haven't felt well enough to do it. So I'm not sure what to do. It's a project that's going to cost too much money to pay someone to come and do. I'm kind of at a little bit of a standstill. I think what I need to do is just come out, mark it all out. I have spoken to a guy in town who digs post holes, like he's got the attachment for his tractor, so he's happy to come out and I'll pay him to dig all the holes so we don't have to do that, and then we can just start setting poles. I just need to get a start on it, and it needs to be done. I just need to chip away at it. The hard thing is everything needs to be chipped away at. Every morning I come out and I do some weeding to try to just not let it get too out of hand, just to stay on top of it. I wish I could keep it looking perfect, but during these warm months when there's, we're watering every day, there's warm air, the weeds just go crazy. So at this point, I'm just managing them, which I'm happy with, as long as nothing gets out of hand like it did. I think it was season 2, where it was just, you couldn't tell if it was weeds or flowers. A bit like plot 3, we'll have a look at that in a minute. Yeah, it's just a lot of work. Like if I felt back to my normal self, I could stay on top of this all, but I can't be out here in the middle of the day anymore doing gardening in the heat. Next year, James is going to be at school, so all the kids will be at school. I think things will change for me a little bit then. I'll have a lot more time to get things done, but for now, this is it. We've got Quinana Gold. It's coming up, you just can't tell from the weeds. And then I think this one is, I just actually need to look at the label on this one because I can't remember. Where's my label at? Oh, it's Wendy's Place. Little tiny burgundy, and she's beautiful, like gorgeous. I love her. And then we've got, and I can't remember what this is, and I didn't put a tag in because I was like, oh, I'll remember that. I didn't remember. I'm trying to rack my brain. What other vine would I planted? So I've got the loofahs. Maybe it's the spaghetti squash, and if it is, I'll be so happy because I love it so much and everything grew really well. But I'm just for the life of me not sure exactly what vine that is, so sorry about that. We don't have much to look at, but there's a lot in from this point on. So this little section here is spring onions, which the animals really like to eat as well, but they haven't, which is good. Some more dahlias just in here. This is Atlantic Jewels. I think we've got carrots here, but they're not coming up. I would say I would say the weather got too hot and I'm going to have to re-sow that, which is a pain in the butt, but it is what it is. And then I've had some Swedes and they're not coming up either. I think what I'm best to do is re-sow all of that and mulch it, and probably most likely put a net on it for 2 reasons. Keeps the animals off, but secondly, it reminds us there's new little seeds in there and they need to stay moist. And I've got my tomatoes, they're actually growing this year, which is making me happy. They're looking okay. I need to get in here and just give them a bit of a tidy up. They're getting a little bit bunchy. What's the word? Like condensed. Too much leaves. This one's not looking too good. So yeah, a bit hit or miss. And then I've got one of my pumpkins here. This is Cinderella, and I'm getting some big trellises to go in. I'm getting 3. I need to get that ordered because they're ready to start trellising. They want to climb now. I really need to get that done. These were my carnations that I just wanted to trial. These are the Chabad. It was just a mix. I don't love them. I think for the amount of time they take to grow, it's not worth it. And they are really a pain to prepare. Like, picking's pretty easy. They've got nice long single stems. You just pick them down low. But prepping for floral work, you've got to pull each of these little, let me just zoom in for you. You can see they've got these nodes, and you've got to pull each individual leaf off. You can't just run your fingers down and strip it because it will snap at the node. So they're very cheap to buy at the wholesaler too. Like, you can get a bunch of 10 for about $6 or $7. It's just not, I mean, I can use them to fill in gaps, but I don't think I'll bother growing these again. We've got more dahlias. These are just like a collection of ones that I'm not sure if I wanted to retire or not. So we've got Marshmallow, African Sunrise, Tuscany, Juliet, and Strawberry. Also got African Peach. It was really pretty. They were just ones I wasn't quite ready to say goodbye to yet, but I might say goodbye to them because I've decided, and I'll talk about this more next week, I'm going to do a big Q&A next week. But just very briefly, I have retired a whole heap of dahlias. Like, they're gone from my collection. So if you bought mystery packs and you've got them, that's great. They won't be available next year, I don't think. Well, many of the varieties won't. I've kind of tried to keep it to pinks and purples because what I thought was, out in this field, there's lots of other colours that are, you know, easy to grow. But the pinks and the purples, especially the purple, it's a bit of a rare colour in the garden. And I wanted to maximise that, and the best way to do that was with the dahlias. So this garden isn't just going to be edible, but I also want it to be beautiful. So in the coming years, you'll see this morph into something that I hope becomes more of a paradise sort of look. Hence, getting rid of some of these dahlias. And I never got onto the dahlia craze. I don't get online and try and get the unicorns, or it's just not me. I find it ridiculous, actually, the amount of money people are paying for a dahlia tuber. That, you know, people are buying it and they die anyway. So I can't get into the hype of it. I actually think it's ridiculous, if you want my strong opinion. I've got some more feverfew here. I actually planted this one in, and I'll put it up on the screen what it is. But with another local flower farmer, we discovered that this variety that I had growing is not available in Australia. So I'm really just growing this to keep that variety alive. And then in here we have Celosia, which, as you can see, there is none because the animals got it all again. I've got one single one. Now I've got something very exciting to tell you. Under this cover are the floret zinnias, just one half of it, the other half's basil. So I've got out here the unicorn mix. They've germinated really well. We might have a peep under here. You can see them in there, germinated really well. I put 2 seeds in each hole and they've all come up, of course. I had heard others talk about, oh, I can hear that wind on my mic. Hang on, I need to turn around. I had heard others talk about the germination rate with the floret zinnias not being great, but mine's been really good. I'd say it's close to 100%. So I've just put mine straight in the ground. I waited until the weather's really hot and I've kept it moist. And I've netted it, because if I didn't net it, I would have nothing. And I've got another section I'll show you around the house yard in a minute. But yeah, it's going really good. So yep, zinnias, basil, more sunflowers. These are just the radiants, just sort of a standard. And I did actually get an okay amount that survived without the animals eating them. So I'm gonna have some sunflowers. I'll probably just interplant them with something else. Then we've got some more dahlias. I've got Venetian and Thelma Maud, which hasn't come up, and I've probably lost it, I'd say. More corn, but look at it. It's already getting its head on it, and they're so small. I'll tell you what went wrong. I grew the seedlings out in sort of deep little seedling things, pots, but I'd left them in there for too long, and by the time I actually planted them out, the roots from the corn had started to go through the bottom of the pot, which is a big no-no. Corn does not like their root system disturbed, so it's stunted their growth. And we've also had some cold snaps of weather, which also stunts their growth. And then a few of these, the animals bit the tops off, which obviously stunts their growth. It stops their growth. To finish off plot 3, we've got Jap pumpkins, which is one of our favourite pumpkins. And this is another spot where a trellis is going. So to show you, there's a trellis going over here. There is one going there and one going across there. So basically every second row, and I'm doing them in a way that I can move them. So at the end of the season, if I don't like the position of them, I can pop them up and put them somewhere else. The rest of this row, pretty excited about. We've got amaranth, we've got hot biscuit, coral fountain, which is growing amazing, and then we've got the velvet curtain. It is patchy germination. Surprisingly, the animals didn't eat this. It's my seed, so I actually saved seeds. So it's the seed I saved from last year, which means there'll be some cross germination. I might get a bit of a surprise. But so far the seedlings are looking true. So we'll see what happens once they actually start to flower. But that was a success. I did have some mini cabbage. Animals ate the whole lot. I've got show and tell, which is a really pretty dahlia, and then my spring onions. This is the section ready to eat, or they've gone a bit past it, but I'll still eat it. I have intermingled it with liastris. Very hard to see because it grows so slow and it's so little. And this one got knocked over by the hose. It's very hard to see. But I am hoping to just have some long random things coming up there. Now, the last row is a disaster. This was my new plant out of raspberries, which got constantly eaten by the animals, which we've established the plants hate. So do I. So it's been constantly eaten. This bed is very weedy. I've got to come through and weed again. So the weeds have kind of taken over again. I just am having a lot of trouble with this bed. I'll persist with it, but I may have to just start a new row for the raspberries and forget about this. I do have a couple of dahlias in here too. There's a couple of dahlias here and I just can't remember what the variety was. And this was the old bed of amaranth. So there's some amaranth coming up. And then up the end here, we've got our sea holly or eryngium. And as usual, it is gorgeous. Look at this white spider. Oh, that is so interesting. Can I get a good shot? So the eryngium is really, really good for pollinators, and it seems spiders. I don't really pick from it that much. In bouquets, it's so spiky. I've had people complain about it. The other thing with growing eryngium is that it will absolutely take over, and the taproot is just so deep. It can be like 1.5 feet deep, especially these long ones. It could be a couple of feet into the ground. Once you've got it, it's going to be very, very hard to get rid of it. So if you don't want it, and it comes up everywhere, like the seed spreads like crazy, and it'll just pop up in all your garden beds and you'll be forever pulling it out. The trick is you've got to pull it out when you're noticing it's very small so that you can actually get it back out. And you've got to get all of that taproot or it's going to just grow again. It's pretty. I do wish I'd put it in an area where it wasn't going to just take over like this. and where I could contain it much better. Really, really good for the pollinators though. They love it. All right, plot 3. This is a disaster. But let me talk you through it because there is a plan. So these 3 rows are just, I need to get in here and empty them out and take the net off. I've just had such little time to get things done. I've had to prioritize other things. But essentially, plot 3, instead of putting the hothouses up the back here, I was going to have really big cocoon tunnels up there. We've got 1 cocoon tunnel already. I'm going to split it in half and it's going to go in here. So plot 3 will now be, tunnels, 2 tunnels, which is why I haven't prioritized getting in here and fixing things. I've got enough to get sort of 1 tunnel here and 1 tunnel here. And then I'll have a little bit of space up this end to just continue with, because I've got my bean trellis here. I'll have maybe 2 rows, this and this, and I'm going to turn the whole lot into 1 big garden bed that'll kind of join up with my pumpkin patch. So that will be plot 3, if you can imagine it. So big pumpkin patch and then 2 tunnels, which is going to be excellent for shoulder season, especially for the vegetables. And the plants that we'll put in there will be mainly for Mother's Day. We plan to still do the Mother's Day sales because it's such big money. I'll put the ornamental kale, the stock, we'll have the chrysanthemums, and probably some other little bits and pieces that can survive the cold, but it slows them down. So that's the plan, just to stop these plants from slowing down. And then we'll put some winter veg in there as well so that we can, eat through the winter. We're up at the pumpkin patch. I've just redone this area just to make it a bit neater. I've got 1 more section of mulch to put in. But basically I've got pumpkins and watermelon in here. Us Australians eat a lot of pumpkin. It's sort of one of our staples, and we don't eat it as a dessert. It's a savoury dish. We'll roast it, we make soup with it. I like to roast it in little tiny cubes and I then warm it up and throw it in salads. We just like pumpkin. So we like to have them to store over winter because they get quite pricey to buy in the winter. So that's the plan here. And then here I've got some watermelons, so Kensington I think it is. They're not doing too good, but anyway. This is going to be my sweet potato bed. I've got the slips started, got to get them in, and then these are my potatoes, and they're really loving life. And the plan here is, as they grow, I'll keep filling this bed up with more soil, and so it'll force more potatoes to grow, but I'm also filling up my bed as the season goes. It sort of took the pressure off to completely fill the bed. I have a video coming out during the middle of the week about those beds, how I filled them up, because it is a lot of soil volume and it's expensive if you have to buy the soil, or if you've got to source it from your own property or use the compost, it's a big task. So I'm going to show you how to fill those big raised tubs up. So keep an eye out for that video. Our last little section is my shade tunnel, which I'm loving. It is a bit ugly, but a garden is a garden, especially a working garden. And I'm really happy with it. It's filled with, well, I think beautiful things. Some are just kind of in the holding pattern. I've got some ornamental kale that we grew. It's growing really well. Like, that was an experiment. We grew it in the hothouse over winter in tubs, and we put it out here, and it is amazing. The only thing is about it, you can see this one has no colour to it, and that's because once they start to grow, they need a cold chill to develop their colour, and it didn't get to do that. So that, with our experiment, that's the only thing about growing it in the off season when it shouldn't be growing and forcing it to grow. It needs a really good chill And I can't remember for how long, but it needs a good chill to develop its colour. And so if we do this, we just have to have kale with no colour. So I'm not sure if that's what I want. So I have a few things in here. My dragon fruit, which you may have seen me plant out. This one's growing really well, which I am happy about because this is the supermarket variety one, just the commercial. It's the pink outer with the white inner. It is going really, really well. This one isn't doing well, and this one at the back's doing terrible. So I'm hopeful. I think I'll get this potted up soon. I'd say there's roots down there. I'll get this potted up soon and we'll start I've started the experiment, but we'll keep the experiment going. And then I've got my hydrangeas. I've had to do this shade cloth. It's 4 layers now, especially up this end, just to keep them protected. They were starting to get sunburnt, but they're actually growing really well. I've even got a flower which I need to cut off. But they're going really, really well. I've got some pileas in here, which are doing much better out here than they were inside. It was just so much work keeping them alive inside the house. And these are the sweet potato slips. I need to just snap those off, put them in water, get the roots going, and then get them out. These are snow pea shoots, which we eat. We love to eat it on salads. I've found this. I know you can grow them in water in jars. I don't have a lot of success with that. I just grow it in soil and then I cut them off. And I've got my ornamental kale started. I started the ornamental kale on the 15th of January last year. I've started this a month early. I just want to see what happens. I'll start another lot on the 15th of January as well because I know that works in our climate. But yeah, I'm just going to see. Can I get it a bit earlier? Can I get the stem length a bit longer? And I use this for Mother's Day sales. And my wildly unsuccessful attempt again to grow lettuce from seed. So as you can see, there's lots and lots of things in this garden. It's slow. I can't wait for another month or another 6 weeks when it's just absolutely taken off, but I know what's going to happen. We're going to get, normally by this time of year, it's an absolute full brimming garden, but because I'm so behind, we're going to get a very short window of amazingness unless we get a very late frost this year, which I'm hoping for. You never know. Let's go over to the house yard and I'll show you what we've got growing over there. The wind is really picking up, so hopefully we can get through this before it gets really bad. We're in our house yard and we've slowly been building this up over the years to be, you know, we want the house yard to be sort of like a cutting garden, but a beautiful one that's a landscaped one. So that's the slow progress on this. And, you know, then eventually we'll have plants that you walk through out to get out to the flower field. And the whole thing will be sort of, I mean, if we can landscape the entire 7.5 acres, we will. But it'll be a long time away. First up, the pride and joy, our hothouse with the planter boxes. And this is the cosmos, but it is not coping at all. The heat just kind of took off a bit too quick. I don't know what's going to happen. Historically, when we've had this problem and the cosmos hasn't had a chance to grow, it just doesn't grow. And then we kind of just don't get much off it all season. We've kind of found if we don't get it in early spring and get it growing before the heat hits, it really struggles. And we had frost, so the cosmos that we got in early got hit by frost and died. So there's not much we can do about it. We've got a little hydrangea bed there. This is a new garden that I sort of put in a couple of years ago. The hydrangeas, and the idea was, eventually when they get really big, the idea is to be able to sit over there on our patio and have a sea of colour in the background. And with the pinks, if they stay pink, we've got the blue house in the background. Rather than looking at the garden as a massive big whole, which I do, like I plan it as a whole, I also look at the little vistas and the little areas that are cute little things to take photos of. Ronai's leaving for work. I'll take you up the back here. I just can't win with these animals. They're so frustrating. Here's my pineapple plant. It's very interesting, and I've put it here so people see it when they come to the house. But it is just Having the wallaby families around is so nice. They're so cute to watch, but they are so destructive. It's so frustrating. Every new plant that we get, we have to kind of just buy one of them, sit it there for a week or so and see if they eat it. But this is my hellebore bed, and it does have a couple of hydrangeas mixed in amongst it, because the plan was then in the summer the hydrangeas take over, but I think it's too shady for them, which sounds ironic, but they really don't get very much sun here at all. This tree is huge and amazing and very, very, very shady, so there's not much chance. I have an oyster plant over here, which this section here gets too much sun, and the oyster plant is getting too much sun. So this little section has been a challenge to plant out. In the winter it's fine, it looks amazing in the winter. For the summer it's been a challenge to work out what to put in there when there's this sort of harsh divide between not enough sun and too much sun. So I need to work on that. I actually wouldn't mind putting a big sculpture on the corner where all the sun is, and I'd actually love to have a huge concrete orb, like, you know, nearly as tall as me. That would be so cool, but I think I'm gonna have to make it myself, because can you imagine the cost? Any ferns or, you know, leafy plants the wallabies will get, so they've had a go at this, they've had a go at my ferns. They don't eat canna lilies, which is amazing, and I love canna lilies. So I've got some little pockets of canna lilies here, I've got one here and one around the other side, and then I've got a lot of hydrangea plants in here. But as you can see, even though they're in the shade, yesterday was so hot and it's burnt them. If I plant the plants in pots that the wallabies would otherwise get, they won't go near it, even the little short pot. I don't know what it is about pots, but they don't like pots. So that's my trick. Anyway, the hydrangeas back here are really pretty. So the ones down around there are pink, and these ones are more purple and blue. So I'm pretty happy about that. And then I've got a couple of whites, which it won't matter what the composition of the soil is, they will always stay white. So I'm loving that. Yes, my ivy's taking over, you all warned me. Thankfully it's such a slow growing plant where we are, I can get on top of it, but yous all told me. I will sort that out though. As I said, I'm in the process of working on this garden and cleaning it all up, and that's one of the projects. But it does look really cool, look how it's growing up that tree. And sadly, this tree, my paloma, is dying. We need to get a cherry picker in and cut out all the dead branches because they're starting to fall on us. And I'm going to start propagating and growing a couple of new ones and pop them in nearby. So hopefully they're an okay size by the time this one's finished. Agapanthus. Now, the funny thing about agapanthus are, for us, they are such a common thing in the garden. They're everywhere. They grow like weeds. Like, people will give them away, they'll dig them out, they have trouble getting on top of them. I really love them. I think they're beautiful. I've always loved them. And I know in other parts of the world they're not as easy to grow. We don't even have to water them and they'll grow here, which is amazing when you think about how hot and dry it gets. But yeah, I really love my agapanthus. My very, very first video on this channel was spray painting the dried dead heads, spray painting them for Easter, which I've got a whole heap this year that I'll probably do again. It sounds silly, but it looks cute. It's a little bit of fun. And it tricked people. They'd come and they'd say, what did they say? Where did you get the pink and the yellow agapanthus from? And I'm like, oh, it's spray painted. But isn't this a cute little view? More cannas here and here. This is our little pathway that goes all through the back of that garden. Irises are finishing. I've got this gorgeous little plant and I'll put the name of it up on the screen, but it is going to be so gorgeous. I've got another one in another garden. I'll show you that when I'm done. I've got my blue spruce. We've got the glads that are just finishing off. Some are about to flower at the back, but the reds are finishing, which was great because we had them for Christmas. I do have some dahlias in amongst here to come up. Euphorbias, which really take over. I've just cut that back. I've got a salvia. It never really does too well up there. It just kind of, it looks like it might flower this year, but it barely flowers. The Easter daisy, which is a really, really pretty cut flower, it just self-seeds itself in there. I just let it go. It's beautiful. I love it. And then around here, it's mainly bulbs. There's a lot of daffodils and bulbs, and I still need to plant out this. The problem I'm having is this grass is so invasive. It's kikuyu, and I can't keep it out of that garden. So until I can get on top of it, there's no point me planting anything in here, because every time I pull that grass out, it's going to disturb the roots of the plants. So this is just in a holding pattern. I need to come in with some nice fresh mulch and just mulch it out. This bay tree does amazing here. I'm actually thinking the one up the back doesn't like being under that stump of the gum tree. So my bay, and then I've got some more of the paniculatas. I've got a little one here. It's doing quite well. One just under that bay. And then I've got around this birdhouse, I've got one here and one here. So you can imagine by next season, and I'll show you my advanced ones in a minute, but you can just imagine there'll be these huge fluffy white balls scattered through there. So this garden's slowly coming together. It's taken me years to work out what to do here, because there's so many different little microclimates in here, like full shade, part shade, full sun, baking hot sun. And I need to get the watering system in, and I'm just going to put a couple of sprinklers in just to blast the whole lot with water. That's probably my easiest solution here. We've got our hedge. I'm about to water that. It is really struggling. The wallabies are just eating it like there's no tomorrow. We are really, really struggling. And I know that some of you has recommended that we cut it right off. The problem is the wallabies, you can see over here, they've eaten all the lower leaves off. And if we cut the tops out, there'll be nothing left for the plant to sort of utilize. It'll have nothing left. So we couldn't cut them completely off, even though that would have been a much better way to have these hedges growing. So we're just trying to hobble them through summer. It is a little bit disheartening though. Moroni's put in a massive one for a client, and hers is looking amazing because the kangaroos and the wallabies can't get to it. So hers is really bushed out. So it's a bit of a shame. We're just hoping that the root system is developing really well, and we hope that it'll eventually just take off, and then it won't matter what the wallabies are doing to it, but fingers crossed. Now I'm walking over to my newish, I put it in last year, garden bed in front of the shed, and it looks a bit wild at the moment, but it's really cool and I love it, and I'll talk you through it. Here it is, and we've just had the most amazing flush of red glads in time for Christmas. I need to come in and just cut all the mess out now basically, but we had the huge hollyhocks. I'm just letting them set their seed. We've got the paniculata hydrangeas. This is full sun, like baking hot full sun, and look at them. They did get a little bit burnt yesterday because it was so hot, and that'll happen a couple more times this season, I'm sure. But overall, there's no way a hydrangea could ever do that otherwise. It just looks so good. I'm on the lookout for a rock to put here and another big one here, and I've got my poles, the trellis poles. Still need to get it up, so that's going to go in along there, and it'll just hide this ugly section of the house. So when people come up the driveway, I mean, most people are looking at the garden anyway, but they'll just see the garden, the trellis will be here, and then they'll get past. So the trellis will hide all of that, and then they'll see the house, which is a bit of a mess at the moment. But I am putting like a arbor at the front here for an entry, and it'll just end up looking so cute. So back here, I'll take you through some of these little plants because we've got some really cute stuff in here. So the lamb's ear, it is growing so beautifully, and it's because the tap is behind here and it leaks. So it's constantly leaking onto here. I love these grasses, I'm not sure of the name. I've got some sedum autumn joy, and I need to get more of it. I love it. It's the prettiest green for summer, and then it's gonna have its flowers for autumn, which is gonna be really good. I've got another one of these plants here, and it's going to fill out and look really beautiful right there. Next year's hollyhocks are taking off. So this bush here is a spirea. It's pink spice. It is gorgeous. The foliage is so pretty. And yes, it does work really well in bouquets. I just don't use it very much because I don't have a lot of it. But I am going to put more in. But you can see the tips have that little blush tinge to them. So very pretty. More hydrangeas. I've got some astilbes in here. And there's another one over there. And this is the prairie smoke. It is really bushing out really well. The only problem is the wallabies eat the flower. And if you've seen prairie smoke, it is such a shame that we can't get the flower on that because it is this whimsical, beautiful little flower. I'll pop a picture up so you can see. So it's a bit sad that we can't have that. And then we've got the hydrangeas. We've got some dahlias in the back there. I think it's Samoan Prince and, I can't think what the other one is. They're just random. We've got a little chrysanthemum. I've got a few chrysanthemums through here because I want it for autumn to look really good. I've got some sage, a little bit of lavender down in here. This side was planted out last year and you can see it's really come into itself. This side was planted out this season and that's why everything's so small. But I've pretty much just copied plants, but you can see the ugly section of house that I'm trying to hide. I do have one little lonely peony here. I plan to put peonies out in the new perennial beds, the Hobbit style ones out in the field. So if I can put a couple in here just to scatter around the house yard, and then I'll put a heap out in the field. This 5-year plan that we've just had is now a 10-year plan. I've got more of the Sunday Fraise. And I do have some cosmos here, and that was just me throwing seed the start of the season. It did quite well. And then I've just got some little creepers and some more chryses, which the animals are eating. But it looks pretty nice, that garden. And then of course on the house we've got our grapes and it's looking really pretty. I just need to clean up the house. Our last little section is just around in here. I've bought some cactus and succulents. I need to get them in. But this is just, it looks a bit messy at the moment. Just some random things. I've got violets. There's some nasturtiums. I can't remember what this is. Moroni calls it Neospero or something like that. I don't know what it is. Ivy, which I really love, as you've probably noticed. Just one hydrangea. My herbs are over here. I should have really cleaned all this up, but look at this. Isn't this so gorgeous? The woman's shed in Yak in town makes them. They're on a spike, so it just sits in the garden like a little teacup. Isn't that so cute? My herbs and just some other plants over here. Everything's kind of struggling because it's been too hot, so I don't have a lot to show there. Thank you for watching. Next Saturday, I'm doing a sit-down video. I'm filming it prior, so if you've got questions, please pop them in the comments and let me know so I can answer those questions. But I'll be talking about how things are going and the deeper plans for the field, some collaboration ideas and fails. So that's next Saturday. And in the meantime, happy gardening. Those in the northern hemisphere, I hope you're staying cozy and warm. Those of us in the southern hemisphere, I hope we're surviving. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.